And I think for a final video for your Saturday morning, let's go to Zero Hedge. David Rosenberg. I love that last name. It reminds me of the Jerky Boys again. Saul. This is Saul. Saul Rosenberg. David Rosenberg. This is a bubble of historic proportions. Shortly after we remarked, most recently, this is Zero Hedge, on the unprecedented Canadian housing bubble that has migrated from Vancouver to Toronto, Gluskin Chef's chief economist David Rosenberg joined the growing chorus of calls for government intervention into the Toronto housing market. In an interview on BNN, Rosenberg, who correctly called the U.S. housing bubble in 2005, when still at Merrill Lynch, said the massive deviation from historic norms. Hang on one second. Okay, so the same guy here, Rosenberg, who called the U.S. housing bubble in 2005 when still at Merrill Lynch, said the massive deviation from historical norms has him drawing comparisons between the two situations. He says this bubble is on par with what we had in the States back in 05, 06, and 07, he said. We have to actually take a look at the situation. The housing market here is in a classic price bubble. If you don't acknowledge that, you have your head in the sand. Rosenberg warned, unchecked increases in home prices are becoming a social issue. It's not an equity. It's not a bond. It's where people live, he said. Where home prices are in Toronto, they absorb 13 years of average family income. That is completely abnormal. We've never seen this before, he said. We're out of equilibrium and we're out. Well, he says it twice. We're out of equilibrium and we're out of equilibrium. Or there's some sort of market failure. Are there grounds there for government intervention? I think the most ardent libertarian would say yes. Rosenberg said there are a trio of levers the government can pull to cool down the market. Authorities can address supply, which he said has already been kiboshed. Interest rates can be raised, but Rosenberg doesn't believe the Bank of Canada will do that. New policy can be drafted to address the prevalence of speculation. Quote, these are not prices driven by the local fundamentals. This is a foreign buyer coming in, he said. Toronto has really emerged as a first-class city, not just politically, not just culturally and economically, but also in terms of being a major financial center. But if you're going to ask me at this stage, do we need to approach taxation of this capital coming in differently to curb the demand? That's absolutely right, he says. And to make his position clear, Rosenberg also has an op-ed in Canada's Financial Post on the topic, titled simply enough, make no mistake, the Toronto real estate market is in a bubble of historic proportions. Now, that might be Toronto, but we, in this country, are also in a bubble in real estate prices. Maybe not of historic, epic proportions like Toronto, but a very large bubble nonetheless. Yeah, so anyways, this is a bit of a longer article, but I feel like I'm talking about this so much lately, I don't need to read you a whole, 10 more paragraphs about this stuff. In Canada, especially Toronto area, and remember Vancouver just recently, it's out of control with the housing prices. And if you have out of control housing prices, that also means out of control rents. And they're over there trying, the mayor and stuff, we're going to tax you if you don't have someone living in the house for 6 months out of the year or 90 straight days. We're going to tax the living crap out of you. Okay, can you imagine being taxed when they're assessing property taxes very high because the foreign investors have pushed prices up so high, and you're just trying to live. Maybe you have a second house, and half the year we live there, the other half we live here when it's colder, hotter, whatever. Can't do that now. We better make sure we live over there full time because we're going to get taxed, $14,000 a year or more. Could you imagine that kind of tax? That's what the mayor's saying they're going to do. I don't remember if it was Toronto or maybe it was Toronto or Vancouver, one of those places. I was just reading it the other day. So yeah, bottom line, housing is way, way, way overheated. I'm sitting on the sidelines for sure. Take care.